Hello, gem hunter. Would you believe me if I told you that there are many gems lost in nature, just waiting for the right opportunity to be found? Well, of course, the type of gemstone that can be found depends on the region you live in. But if it seems hard to believe, you should know that most of the great gems ever discovered, like this beautiful yellow diamond, were found by ordinary people. Some of these stones were so rare that when they were cut, they were auctioned off for thousands of dollars, like this ruby that is now appearing on your screen. But before we go any further, let me ask you a question. If you found a sapphire or a ruby in a river, would you be able to recognize it? Well, if the answer is no, then this video is for you, because today I'm going to show you how to identify these two gems if you find one of them lying around. Now imagine for a moment that you're walking along the banks of a river and you come across a dull, unremarkable stone. But after looking at it and seeing that it looks like an ordinary stone, you just throw it away. But what you may not know is that this stone could be a precious jewel. And if this has never happened to you, you can be sure it has happened to someone you know. Unfortunately, this situation is more common than you might think. And here's why. Not all precious gems are found in nature in polished and obvious form. In general, most precious gems are irregular, opaque, or very dirty, encrusted or trapped inside other minerals. That's why you need a closer look to find these gems. But what do you need to know to develop that closer look? Well, take rubies, for example, which are rare, precious stones that can even be found in the rivers where you live. Now look at this rough specimen and notice how imperfect it is, with some inclusions. So when you notice another stone, clean it well and keep it with you until you're sure what mineral it is. This applies to sapphires, diamonds, agates, and almost any type of precious mineral you might be lucky enough to find. First, it's important to note that rubies and sapphires are actually the same mineral, corundum. This mineral is composed of oxygen and aluminum, with small impurities that give these stones their characteristic colors. On the Mohs scale, which measures the hardness of minerals, corundum is just below diamond, with a hardness of 9, while diamond has a maximum hardness of 10. This makes corundum the second hardest mineral in the world. Rubies and sapphires are essentially the same. The main difference between them is their color. Rubies are always red, while sapphires can come in a variety of colors. Therefore, if you find a ruby in a certain region, it is very likely that you will also find sapphires, as both minerals are formed under similar geological conditions. It's worth noting that rubies and sapphires are extremely highly valued on the gemstone market, but this is only true for high-quality gems. As with diamonds, the value of these stones depends very much on the intensity of the color and the degree of crystallization. More crystalline stones with intense colors tend to be much more valuable. Not every ruby or sapphire found in nature is of high quality. Stones with a weak color or that are not suitable for cutting are known as industrial rubies. These stones, while not valuable as gemstones, are very useful as abrasives due to their hardness. However, don't be discouraged if you find an industrial ruby. It could be an indicator that with further exploration, you may find a very high-quality ruby or sapphire in the same area. But how do you know where to find rubies or sapphires before you go looking in some river? First of all, it's important to learn to recognize the indicators of these stones, which apply to any type of terrain. There are natural clues that can guide you, and these clues are the minerals associated with rubies and sapphires. By identifying these minerals, you increase your chances of being in a region rich in precious stones. One of the main clues is the presence of white quartz, which we talked about in an earlier video. This mineral usually occurs in areas where rubies and sapphires are also found. Also look for schist and mica schist, which are shiny, fragile materials that crumble easily when touched. Mica in particular is an excellent indicator. It comes in a variety of colors, and the more mica you find, the more likely you are to be near rubies or sapphires. Another important mineral to identify is pegmatite, a rock related to granite and composed of quartz and feldspar. It is hard, full of visible granular inclusions, and usually gray in color. Depending on your region, you may even find large walls of pegmatite. Also look for aluminous gneisses, Gray rocks with long striations that contain large amounts of aluminum, the main element in the formation of rubies and sapphires. Zoisite, a light green mineral, is also often found in association with rubies. Green stones with pink flecks can be a strong sign that you are in an area with potential for rubies. And if you see basalt, marble, and granite in the area, this could also indicate the presence of these gems. Remember, the more of these indicators you find, the better your chances of finding rubies or sapphires. So the next time you go gem prospecting, keep these signs in mind and be aware of the nature around you. Now you know how to tell if a river near you has sapphires or rubies. But regardless, we're going to show you how to recognize these stones in practice, right in the rivers. Finding a ruby or sapphire, even if it's not the best color, is an excellent sign. This is because the stones in the rivers undergo a kind of natural selection. The higher quality gems are stronger and more resistant, while the lower quality gems are more fragile and break over time. Over the years, the more fragile stones are eliminated by contact with other rocks, while the more durable stones remain intact. Here are a few examples of stones found in Brazil. At first glance, they look like ordinary river stones, but they are actually sapphires. Although the colors are not as vivid, the size of these stones can add value, as they are rare in such dimensions. Another example is these grayish-green stones, another type of sapphire that comes from rivers. Now guess what these reddish stones are? That's right, they are rubies. Notice that the color is a pinkish red, not very intense, but noticeable. Although they are not of the highest quality, they can become valuable after cutting, like the stones you see on your screen now. Here are some of the rubies we showed you earlier, now cut and ready for sale. But how do you identify a stone like this? How can you tell if it's a ruby or a sapphire? The first thing to look at is the weight. Rubies and sapphires are dense gemstones and can weigh almost twice as much as an ordinary stone, such as quartz, jasper, or agate. This difference in weight means that these stones tend to accumulate in rivers with other heavy minerals such as ilmenite and chromite, a dense mixture of iron and titanium. This phenomenon occurs because, over time, rivers cause the heavier stones to concentrate in cavities, while the lighter stones are carried away by the current. Another mineral that can indicate the presence of rubies and sapphires is garnet, a reddish gemstone that is also quite heavy. However, it is important not to confuse garnet with ruby. The red of rubies is more pinkish, while that of garnets is more brownish. A handy way to identify rubies is to use an ultraviolet flashlight. When exposed to this light, rubies usually glow an intense pink, while other stones remain the same color under UV light. However, this test is specific to rubies, as sapphires do not react to UV light in the same way. In addition, a crucial characteristic to observe in rubies and sapphires is the stone's DNA. This term refers to the presence of unique patterns on the surface of the stones that act like a fingerprint. Rubies and sapphires often have a network of intersecting lines, similar to a game of tic-tac-toe. Take, for example, these samples of cut gold and sapphires, where the lines are clearly visible. In some cases, it is also possible to observe the asterism effect, where a star of light appears on the stone under illumination. This pattern is not always obvious, so it is important to carefully inspect any heavy stone you find. A magnifying glass can be useful to see these characteristics in more translucent or lower quality stones. Another detail to look for are the spiral patterns that can appear on some gemstones. These patterns are characteristic and deserve special attention, as they may indicate that you are holding a gemstone. And finally, be careful if you find a broken stone. Rubies and sapphires are extremely tough and hard, which means they don't break easily. Unlike other gemstones, such as quartz, jasper, or agate, which when broken tend to produce a smooth, shiny fracture similar to glass, rubies and sapphires have no cleavage. And when they do break, they do so in a totally irregular manner, with dull edges and little shine. This is an essential characteristic for distinguishing them. If you find a stone that looks dull and uneven, don't be too quick to dismiss it. It could very well be a ruby or a rough sapphire. Also remember that the presence of a lower quality stone may indicate that you are in a promising environment where high quality gems can also be found. Another important point is the location of the search. Rubies and sapphires tend to accumulate in certain areas of rivers, such as bends, shallow areas, or where the current slows down, as these areas facilitate the accumulation of heavy materials. So you should observe the behavior of the river and map areas where gravel accumulates, because these are the places where heavy minerals, such as rubies, diamonds, and garnets are deposited, hidden under the gravel, just waiting for someone to find them, which means that this information can make all the difference in your search. And remember, the key to finding any gemstone is knowing the right signs. This includes not only knowing the weight and density of the stone, but also understanding the geological context around it. If necessary, I recommend that you watch the video again, write down the key points, and return to the field with these tips in mind. The more knowledge you have, the better your chances of success. Many people with a little courage and a willingness to venture out end up finding many hidden treasures in nature. Whether it is a simple walk through the woods or along the banks of a river, many of our subscribers tell us in the comments about the gems they find. So if you'd like to start this therapeutic hobby that keeps you in touch with nature and gives you the opportunity to earn some extra income, I'd encourage you to start right now. Who knows, you might even discover a new mineral deposit out there. And to help you identify these stones, there are several complete videos here on the channel about different types of gemstones, including diamonds, with home tests to help you get to know the stones you find out there better. But if you want all this knowledge organized in one place, by accessing the first link in the description of this video, you can purchase our digital book, Gemology for Beginners, a complete and illustrated material containing the Dictionary of Minerals, where you will learn the main characteristics of all the precious and semi-precious stones that exist in the world. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter.